Okay, we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. This is Becky DeGrosso with CounselingWise.com, and today's webinar is called Grow Your Private Practice Faster by Offering a Free Report. I wanted to check in with everyone before I get started to make sure that you can hear me. There's always a delay with Google Hangouts here. And so before I go too much further, I want to make sure that you can hear me so that I'm not talking into the airwaves all by myself here. I'm just going to wait a minute so that I can get a response from you. Please just type into the chat, yes, I can hear you, if you can. That would be great. Well, it seems that the delay is longer today than usual. All right. Okay. I hear. I can hear you, says Alex. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Dr. Karen, Megan, great. Okay, thanks for the verification there. I never feel comfortable diving in without making sure you can hear me. Scott, Tiffany, awesome. Thanks so much. Carol, thanks. Okay, I'm going to dive in. All right, here we go. So there is a little problem, okay, and that's what we're going to address today. So the problem is that many people are either creating a website for the first time, they have a website but it's not bringing them enough clients, or you may have a website where you're getting clients but your caseload is erratic. Okay, and so if you are experiencing any of these challenges, problems, this is for you today. Okay, this is what we're going to be addressing. Now, the big problem is this: most website visits are wasted. Okay, that's a very big statement right there, and that is a critical learning to take away from this today. Okay. Most website visits are wasted. It's a drag, all right? But it's the reality of the situation. And so we're going to go into this. 2% of people, quote unquote, buy on the first exposure. And this is to anything, okay? So this is not just websites. It's not just therapist websites. It's not, it applies to everything, okay? So across the board, the generally accepted sales statistics are that only 2% of people, quote unquote, buy, meaning engage, call you, do business with you on the first exposure to you. All right. Now, 85% of people, quote unquote, buy after exposures 5 through 12. All right. So that's a further down the road type of situation. Huge difference in those two numbers, right? So what we want to do is we want to provide a solution that's going to help you be in that 85%. Okay, and the solution is that we're going to have you offer something of value on your website that people will download. Okay, now in doing that, they're going to give you their email address, and then you're going to send them this item of value, and we'll talk more about what that is. But the whole point is that when they give you their email address, you can now increase the exposures to you by emailing them, and get yourself in that 5 to 12 exposure range and be in the 85 percentile of people who actually engage, okay? You're gonna get them in the 85 percentile of people who actually engage, buy, call you, whatever, all right? Now, when we talk about what you're going to give to them in terms of this item of value, I'm talking about a free report mostly in this presentation. And the reason I'm doing that is because most therapists I know are comfortable with the idea of putting a free report on their website. You can also put a video or an audio. I guess you could put something else. But most therapists I know aren't as comfortable with the idea of video or audio on their website. And a free report is pretty simple. If you're comfortable with doing video, and we do have clients who are, then that's great. You can do a video or an audio. You can give them something. Now you have to remember though that we're not talking about a welcome video, okay, or a little welcome audio. We're talking about you giving them something of value, teaching them something on a video or an audio, Some hypnotherapists, for instance, will do a hypnotherapy type recording, an MP3 on an audio. You could do a video where you're actually talking about a certain issue and kind of giving them some tips on how to deal with that issue. All right, so video and audio are totally fine. Just kind of transpose free report for that if that's what you're thinking you would like to do on your site. And just know that I'm going to be talking about a free report mainly because in my experience of working with therapists over the last 8 years, most of them are more comfortable with a free report than those other formats. Now, you will notice at the bottom of this page that I say, don't just offer a free newsletter, okay? Not just an offer for a free newsletter. That's not what we want to do. We actually want to get their email by putting what I call a lure or an ethical bribe up on the website that's really going to pique their interest and heighten their curiosity and get them to opt in because they want what it is that you're offering. So a lot of folks, probably as recent as 5 years ago, it worked really well to actually offer, hey, opt in here for my free newsletter. I'll send you tips and, informative articles every month in my newsletter. Well, that used to work, not anymore. It doesn't work at all. Okay, people don't really want a newsletter. They will fork over their email address for something that they see is valuable right there on your site right now. And so this works much better in terms of growing your email list, and that's what we're all about. That's what we want to do. Okay, so just to review, what we want to do here is we want to offer something so that people will give you their email address, maybe their first name, whatever. And what we want to do that for is because we want to stay in touch with them. We want to increase exposures to us over the next several months such that that person has had anywhere between 5 and 12 exposures to us, and then they're much more likely to actually seek us out as a therapist, as a professional provider. Okay? All right, so let's keep going then. Hopefully that's clear. That's what we're trying to do here. Now, I realize that you may have some objections already, okay? Maybe what I'm talking about sounds scary. You may be thinking to yourself, but I don't have anything unique to offer. What could I put in a free report or a video or an audio? Who am I? Everything's pretty known in my field, or there are people who are in my field in my town who know so much more than me. What do I have to offer? Okay? You may be thinking, I hate writing. It sounds really painful. What are you talking about, this free report thing? That sounds awful, all right? You may be thinking, well, that's all good and well, but I don't know how to make something look professional on my website. How do I actually do this, okay? And you also may be thinking, I don't know how to make this work on my site in terms of the mechanics. How is it that I can put a free report or something else, video, audio, up and have somebody do this thing you're calling an opt-in where they give me an email address and then I capture that and then I send them things? How does that work? Okay, so we're going to talk to all of these things here today, and so don't worry about it. If any of these are particularly troubling to you, jot it down. Let me know. We're going to open it up for Q&A at the end, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have at all. So just jot things down as we go, and we'll get to that Q&A at the end. All right? Okay, so any of you who have been on my webinars in the past, you're probably familiar with this. We like to systematize things at Counseling Wise. We are all into creating a marketing system that works. It is not just a, hey, let's look at this piece and throw this up and see if it works, or let's look at this piece over here and see if we can, work magic with that. We're into developing a website that is a marketing system, and it works. And the trick to this is that there's 3 very, very important pieces to a website that works, and the third one is what we're going to be talking about today. List building and nurturing, okay? And number one, if you had a website where people could come to your website and immediately see what you do and really be captivated by your message, and maybe even you had 2 working, where you had well-placed blog posts and you were really providing valuable information in your blogs, all that's good and well, but if you don't have number 3, it's not going to really work for you, okay? It's going to work to an extent. But if you have number 3 in place, that is where the magic is, okay? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure 1 and 2 are good enough so that we can get to 3, because this is where you're going to get stability in your practice. You're going to get a list of potential clients that's growing over time. Anytime things get low in your practice, all you have to do is send to this list, and voila, you have 2 or 3 clients who come in. Okay, this is where you want to get. This is the big end goal. So there's a lot of folks who focus on number 1 and 2, and actually not even very well, but they forget number 3. They just don't ever get to it. And so we really want to get to number 3. That's what we're talking about today. And in our Smart Therapy Websites program, for all of you who have been through it or are in it, you know that we address this entire system, and this is what we do. So keep that in mind if you're feeling that you might need help in implementing any of this as we go forward. All right, so what we're going to do is talk about 4 steps to making this happen, okay? The first thing, if you're going to put up a free report or video or audio, choose a good topic, okay? And ideally, you want to have this topic identified, 1 topic per specialty. So what I mean by that is, let's say that you work with couples and with eating disorders and with depression, okay? Let's just say that that's the case. If you have a free report lure on your site that's really general, how to make your life great, that's really not going to speak to any of those audiences very well. But if you have a topic that you've decided upon, 1 per specialty, so eating disorders, couples, and depression, that is going to be much, much more effective. You're going to present those at the time that somebody is looking at that specialty, and you're going to get so much better results if you do it that way. Okay, and I'm going to get more into the detail, like how do you determine what a good topic is as we go along, but I'm just going to cover the steps here. The second step is to create a strong title, and this is extremely important because the title is what makes one act. Okay, that's what's going to get the attention. You can have a great topic and a terrible title, and no one's going to pay attention. So a strong title is really, really important. The next thing is you want to write and format the report, or create the video or audio, okay? So the creation of the actual piece of valuable material, you want to create that. We're going to talk about how you do that. And then the 4th item is you want to put it on your site with an autoresponder, okay? And so I'm going to talk in detail about that as well. And no worries, this is really simple. It's done day in and day out. We probably do this 5 times a day. It's not a big deal. It can be overwhelming and kind of confusing if you aren't familiar with autoresponders and you've never used one. So don't worry, we can help you with that. So step 1, choosing a good topic. So your topic must be something that your client really wants, okay? And this again gets back to specificity. Again, if you say, hey, how to live a peaceful life, who does that apply to, really, right? If I am somebody who's really depressed and I'm having a hard time getting to work every day or something like that, or I have an eating disorder, or I have a terrible parenting problem or something, that topic, how to have a peaceful life, that's not going to really do anything for me, all right? So it needs to be specific, and it needs to be something that your client really wants. Now, what we recommend is that with any of your marketing, before you even start writing marketing copy at all, that you do something called the dig deep exercise. That enables you to get into the skin of your client, okay? Now, you're all therapists, right? You know how to be empathetic, you know how to relate to what they're feeling, all this good stuff, but over time, you can get kind of whatever, right? And not really deeply feel the feelings that they're actually feeling. It's a lot to take on, actually. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to actually feel deeply into what your client might be feeling. And this is really what's necessary for good marketing. It doesn't even matter, what the issue is. Physicians, if they did this, would be much better physicians, okay? So the dig deep exercise is something that allows you to really relate to what people are feeling, and that's the big thing. Now, you also have to remember when you're doing this that sometimes your audience, your intended audience, is not the actual client. They're a family member, okay? So, for instance, Let's say that you treat addictions. Often the people who are searching for help are not the person who's struggling with the issue, but the family members, all right? So when you do the dig deep exercise, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more and show you how you find that, you want to make sure you're doing it around your intended audience. And if, in fact, you have let's just use addictions as an example. You have a site that speaks to the person who's struggling with the addiction and also to the family. You want 2 different marketing messages and 2 different reports because they have different issues. They have different concerns. Okay, so again, specificity, that's the name of the game here. All right. You can find this dig deep exercise at counselingwise.com/dig-deep. Okay, counselingwise.com/dig-deep, and you can download it there in a PDF format and go through the exercise. It's a very, very helpful exercise. If you did this, if you took this away from this call alone, and that's all you took, your marketing on your site is going to improve by 500%. Okay, now we use it for marketing messages on the site and also for free reports, and I'm bringing it into the topic here today in reference to free reports or videos or whatever. Okay, so there are I believe 11 questions in the dig deep exercise, and there are some that are more specific to what we're talking about today than others. Okay, so question number 8 in that exercise is, and this is regarding your client or the person who's contacting you. It could either be the client or the client's family member or whoever. What keeps them awake at night, worrying, in pain, or just frustrated, lying in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling? Okay, that gives you a sense of how you really need to crawl into their skin and experience what they're experiencing and get to the root of the matter. All right, so that's one of the questions, and if you can answer this, you're going to be able to come up with a heck of a topic for a free report and a great title. So this is a very key question. Another one that's really helpful is, what is their single biggest problem, related to what you offer, of course, that causes them the most pain or frustration? Okay, the most pain or frustration. So, for instance, let's say that I am let's say I'm pondering divorce. Okay, I've been in a relationship, I've been in my marriage, I'm not happy, it's been a long time, but I have kids. And so anyone who's looking at divorce, they have a lot of problems, right? There's a lot of things. There's financial issues, there's where am I going to live, there's what's the impact on my kids, there's, oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone for the first time in the last 15 years, what's that going to be like? There's what are my relationships going to be with my significant other's family members? I'm really close to them. Am I going to lose them too? Right? There's tons of issues. I'm going to lose my status as a married person on the planet. Tons and tons of issues. But what is the single biggest problem that this person is wrestling with? Okay? So that's what you want to get to. That is the kind of thing that's really going to create a great report. Now, another question is, what do they secretly, privately desire most? Okay, so become your potential client and finish this sentence. If I could just blank. What is that? Okay, what is that? And, we're going deep fast here because these are the questions that are the end of this exercise. In the beginning, of course, you're going to identify, who the client is, in general, what's their issue, what's their living situation, are they the actual end client, or are they a family member, all of those things. But these questions towards the end of the exercise really get into the meat of the matter, and this is where the juice is for your free report. Okay, so let me talk to you about some examples of the big issues. I don't want to harm my kids during the divorce. Okay, I don't want to harm my kids during the divorce. This is why a lot of people stay married, right? Yeah, financial is a big deal, but this is a really big deal too. And the financial piece you can't help with. So when we talk about, related to what you offer, you could help them with navigating this part of it. All right. Another example, I don't want to be on depression meds for the rest of my life. This is something that keeps people from coming into therapy and even getting the darn diagnosis, right? They do not want this as a sentence for the rest of their life. So this is another example of a really big issue. I'm so anxious I can't function. Imagine them laying awake at night so anxious and worrying about everything, right? And not being able to function, not being able to get up in the morning because they're exhausted, not being able to relate to others, to do well at work. I mean, their whole world is in crisis, okay? These are the big deals. And another really common type of issue that people struggle with is, do I really have this? Do I really need help? You know, shame perhaps around the issue. These are the core things that people are going through. And again, these are the things when you bring this out, you're going to be able to really pique their interest on your website. Now, the next thing is to create a strong title. Step 2, once you've identified what these big issues are, is to create a strong, and your topic, of course, is to create a strong title. Now, this is the #1 factor in making this work, really. If you don't create a strong title, it's not going to work. They aren't going to be drawn to the report or whatever it is that you're offering, and they're not going to take action. So you really want to do this. If it isn't spot on, your visitor will not pay attention, okay? Now, and here's another thing to keep in mind, which is sometimes not very popular at all amongst therapists, but most of us are much more motivated to avoid pain than to seek pleasure. So the titles that speak to the avoidance of pain or to pain itself are typically much more effective in getting the opt-in and getting people to pay attention than the, 3 ways to rock your world, right? Or 3 ways to be happy, or whatever. Those don't tend to do very well. And this has been tested forever. That's why magazine covers are always, talking about the negative, because it works, it sells, okay? So we can have ethical and moral conversations about this, but my job is to try to tell you what's going to work to get you clients so that you can help people. So I'm going to tell you this, and you may not like hearing it, but if you focus more on the problems in your headline or your title, you're going to be much better off, okay? And we can talk about this more at the end if you want to talk about it. Here's some examples of titles, okay? So there's a class of titles that's kind of like helpful tips, things that are going to be really helpful to somebody. Can't get to work, 3 ways to make it despite your depression, okay? Now this is really addressing an issue, right? This is not all, how to be blissful or something like this. This is like a real world issue, and we're talking about solving this problem. Here's another one. 5 critical factors in not harming your children during your divorce. For that parent who's laying in bed at night, staying in the marriage and worried about that, just feeling guilty and terrified and awful, that is going to be very, very action-oriented, that report right there. They are going to opt in and give you their email and be happy to hear from you and read your report. Okay, so those are examples of helpful tip type titles. Now, there's also this class of kind of assessment type titles. These are very effective. A title, are you really depressed, or is this just normal? All right, isn't that one of the things that keeps people away? Because they don't really know, or they actually hope they're not really depressed, right? So they don't want to come in and hear the news, get the sentence. So if you have a title like this, are you really depressed, or is this just normal? They're most likely going to read that. They want to read that. They actually want to hear that it's normal. Here's another one that one of our clients came up with that I thought was brilliant. Do I have ADHD? 6 questions to ask yourself and your closest friends. Right? If you think you might, gosh, you would download that in a New York second, right? So that's a very, very effective one. And I have another client in a very, her website is very niched. It's very obvious what the niche is when you get there, but she has a report, Who Needs Help? 3 Ways to Know. And she actually gets, I think, last time I looked, which was, gosh, probably a year and a half ago, she was getting about 200 opt-ins a month. I don't know if she's still getting that many, but amazing, amazing effectiveness with that title. Okay, and this is one of those things, it's an addiction, and so a lot of the people who are opting in are, some of them are the end client wondering if they have this issue. A lot of them are family members, right? They want to know if their family member needs help, really has an issue. And so it's a very effective title there. Okay, so the third step in our little process here is to write and actually format the report and or create the video or the audio. All right, but the process is still pretty much the same in terms of content. So for the writing, you're going to need to choose some kind of a structure, and there's all sorts of things you can do here. Okay, you can choose any article type format that you like, any kind of writing structure that works for you. Obviously, you're always going to want to, an intro, some kind of meat in the middle and some kind of closing. You want to make sure that well, you could even have an interview or some kind of an amalgamated case study. That could work really well. An interview style could be still the same kind of a title, like 3 critical factors in not harming your children through your divorce, and then you can have someone interview you. So the intro would be something like, this is a common question, so-and-so interviewed me, and here, please read the interview below. I think you'll find it helpful. And then you kind of go through it and you write it out that way. A case study could be how so-and-so, let's see, overcame depression and didn't miss a day of work in a year or something like that, whatever. The idea is you want to show them something that's going to be, again, spot on, but it's going to be an example of how it can be done so that they can learn, okay? And people like to watch how other people solve their problems, all right? So it could be a number of different formats. It should be about 5 pages. If it's a report, it should be about 5 pages. If it's a video, it should be, I don't know, probably even in 10 minutes you could do a pretty good job of providing something of value. You don't want it to be really short and just barely scratch the surface of an issue. All right, you want it to be something that is value, so that in the end they go, oh, I'm glad I downloaded that. That was really something. And they have a better image of you. They have a better impression of you. You've built credibility. So you're not going to be able to do that in something that's very, very short. You want to put some work into this, okay? And finally, at the end, you want to include a call to action, right? All of this is about actually getting them to come in, right, or call you. And so you do want to invite them at the end to engage further with you, to give you a call, come to your website, whatever. Okay, so don't forget that piece. That's what this is all about. Okay, possible structure. Similar to what I'm doing on this presentation right here. Okay, we talk about a problem, we talk about there's a solution, we talk about objections that they may have. Okay, so for instance, a problem, you're afraid that you're going to harm your children through divorce. Solution, there's actually a way to do this such that your kids can come out fairly intact. Okay, objections, oh, divorce is terrible for all children, my family's going to hate me, whatever, on and on and on. Children are scarred for life if they go through divorce, whatever. So then you go into an educational part and you talk about, maybe research on how children can actually be okay as long as the parents actually conduct themselves civilly, and that the children are reassured, and there are certain ways to tell them about the divorce to even start the whole process right, or in a way that it's least impactful, et cetera, et cetera. So you go through a whole educational piece of it. The proof piece, and when we say proof, it's not really proof that it's going to work, but it could be social proof that you've worked with other people. It could be including some testimonials, perhaps, from other professionals that you do really good work. So proof is not hard proof. It's really more social proof that you are actually a qualified person and can most likely help them. Okay, uniqueness, hopefully uniqueness is something that you illustrate throughout what you're writing in terms of talking about how you work, and in terms of talking about their issues, illustrating that you understand them really well. And there could be some other things about you where it's unique. So for instance, for me, I am unique in my field because I do these free webinars all the time. I have a ton of information that I give away freely. No one else does this in terms of all these detailed topics and really going deep into this. And that's what's unique about me. That's how, that's what people like about me. And so there are things about you as a therapist that are unique as well. And so go ahead and highlight those things. That's what you want to do. And then finally, the call to action. As I mentioned, you do want to invite them to give you a call or make an appointment or whatever, or at a minimum to read more on your site about a certain issue. Okay, so that's potential structure. You don't have to use that, but I offer it as something that works pretty well. Okay, so step 3. We're going to continue through this. So we've talked about actually writing it. Now we're going to talk about formatting the body of the report. Okay, and so when we do that, we want to consider a couple of different options. One, you can have it professionally formatted. Not many people do this, and I don't think it's needed at all, but some people really want to do it professionally. They want to have it look like a magazine article or something. So you can do that. It's going to cost you probably a couple $100 to have a layout artist do that. You can do it yourself, however, just with Microsoft Word and or Pages. This is what we do. When we create a free report, we do it ourselves, and it's really easy. You always want to use titles and subtitles to break up the text, and I'm going to show you some examples here, so don't worry. You don't want it to be a big big wall of text for them to have to get through. You want to break it up, and you always want to use a page border so that it looks more professional. Here's some examples. The first one here was done by a client of ours, and it's professionally done. Okay, she knows someone who's a graphic artist or layout person or whatever, and they did this for her. The second one is more in line with what we do. We'll use Microsoft Word, and we'll use the H1 tag for the title and then H2 tags for subtitles, and we break up the text, as you can see, so that it's not all one big wall, and we put a page border on it. Okay, and I'm going to give you a resource here in a minute, which is going to take you to a page on our site that's going to talk to you about how you can add this page border in Microsoft Word, which is a very popular system that people use. But you can do the same thing in Pages or even Google Docs. All right. So when we talk about formatting the cover, this is also really important. Now, a lot of people will just put up some kind of a cover, like maybe just a text cover or a flat graphic. What we recommend is that you really want a 3D format, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. So a 3D format makes it look like it's actually a physical product, and obviously you're not promising a physical product because people are going to download it from your website. But what you're actually doing is you're enabling them to envision that they're actually going to receive something. Okay, they're going to receive something. So that's why we want a 3D format. In split tests, it has shown to perform big time compared to a 2D format. You want to make the title lettering very large so it can be read online. This is a common problem. People will make a cover, and they're just looking at it, and they're looking at it as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and they're like, oh, this title is readable. But once it gets squished down to like a 2-inch by 1-inch graphic on your website, if your title lettering is not large, it's not going to show up. So that's a really big one. You can use a graphic artist to create this cover. We actually do them for people if you're interested in that, or you can go to Fiverr.com. If you go to Fiverr.com, it's really kind of the luck of the draw. There's tons of talented folks out there. It's going to cost you about $5 to $10 to get it done in the format you need to get it done. But you don't know who you're getting and how that's going to go. And so if you're one of those folks who's willing to go off on a little adventure and maybe end up spending, 10, 15 bucks and more of your time to get it done correctly, Fiverr.com is a great option. If you're one of those folks who says, I don't want to mess with that, I want someone I can trust, whatever, then use a graphic artist or let us know, because we have one on staff that does free reports all the time. So those are your options there. Now here's some examples of what I'm talking about, and all of these are 3D, okay? So they actually look like some physical product rather than just a flat piece of paper. And these are, all of them, notice that they all have large titles. So when they're this size on a website, they're going to be readable, okay? Also notice that they are really keying in to what the issue is, okay? Dr. Joseph Weiss is a great title. He's an anxiety guy, right? Identifying test anxiety and steps you can take to overcome it. So his is a blend of, hey, do I really have this issue? And here's some steps you can take to overcome it, okay? So it's a assessment / tips type combo. The second one, 4 ways to know you need help with your grief. That's more of an assessment type title, okay? The third one is also more of an assessment type title. Do I have ADHD? And this is the one, 5 questions to ask your closest friends or family. So those are examples of 3D reports. Now, the final step, well, it's actually not the final step, because I'm going to talk to you about the most important part after the final step of creation. But this is the final step of creation. You're going to put it on your website. You need to get it up there, okay? And in order to do that, you need an autoresponder, as I mentioned before. An autoresponder is something like, I'm sure you've heard of them, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Aweber. If you use WordPress, MailPoet is a great integrated autoresponder within WordPress, so you don't have to go to another service. There's all sorts of these. There's eye contact, there's vertical response, there's tons of these, okay? But these tend to be the most popular ones. The folks who are really, really into online marketing and generate a lot of revenue and can afford it, they often use Infusionsoft, but that is probably way, way over the top for any therapist that I know, because you aren't going to be doing that much stuff with email, unless you're a national practice or a national coach or something like that, okay? But these are the most common ones. And the way it ends up looking on your site when you utilize an autoresponder is that the report cover is there. There's usually something at the top, not always, as you can see in the case of the middle one, that will say, hey, download this, or this one over here on the right, it's, have you ever wondered, do I have ADHD, okay? And typically you're going to have some kind of a free report type. You're going to have the image, and then you're going to have either first name and email, or you can see over here is email and first name. Some people will just say name. Typically, if you're just asking for the first name, you're going to get more response because it's less intimidating. But you always want to ask for the email, and you always want the email. Notice that in here the email has an asterisk, which means it's a required field. So in here he's asking for first name and email as a required field. Over here it's just the email that's the required field, and the same thing here. So you're going to do better if you don't require the first name, but probably not that much better, okay? And it's up to you. It's totally up to you. But that's how autoresponders work. They enable you to put this form on your site. Now, the end result is this. If I were to go to this, for instance, identifying test anxiety, and I wanted to download that, I'm going to enter my first name and my email. I'm going to click download. Now, notice you can have the button say whatever you want to say as well. It could be subscribe. It could be download report now, whatever. What's going to end up happening is that this is going to go to another page on the site that will say something like, thanks for downloading my free report. Please check your inbox to confirm your request. All right, that is called a double opt-in. And so a double opt-in is something that is required by most autoresponder companies to ensure that the person is actually really the person who's opting in. Okay, because I could go out here and I could put somebody else's email in there and think, okay, I'm gonna get this free report, but I'm not going to give you my email address because I don't want you bugging me, right? So then they're going to send a confirmation email to that other person who's going to say, what is this? I'm not going to confirm this. So double opt-in is something that really makes your list clean, and you can ensure that the people who are on your list are people who actually really wanted to be on your list, all right? So that's why it's used. It helps deliverability of emails when people do double opt-in, and so it's a good thing to do. So that's going to happen. It's going to say, hey, go check your email. Once I go check my email and I click the confirmation link, then I'm going to get the report. Another email is going to come back to me, and it's going to either have a link for me to go to the website and download the free report, or it's going to include a link with, it's going to include the free report right there. Okay, so that's how email autoresponders work. By evidence of you all being here, you've used at least one and getting on my list. So you know how they work from a user standpoint, and this, you know, the back end is what I'm explaining here from the website viewpoint. All right, let's keep going. So here's the big piece. Now, once it's done, right? Once you got all this up on your site and you're starting to grow your list, you have to follow up with them. Okay? If you don't follow up with them, you haven't done anything. The whole point is to create a relationship and to stay top of mind, right? What we want to do is we want to keep showing up. We want them to think of us as the expert in whatever, test anxiety or helping people through divorce or whatever it is. So that's what you want to do. If you don't email your list, it will all have been for naught. And I see people do this all the time. You know, this is like, gosh, it would be like, you know, climbing to the top of a 14,000-foot peak and not taking the last 100 feet steps to make it to the tip top, okay? This is what you have to do. You got to email your list. You've done all this work. Now don't drop it. You can also create an email sequence that will automatically go out. Okay, and in addition to doing that, that's not required, but you can do it. A lot of people will just do monthly emails. Okay, in my opinion, if you can create an email sequence that will automatically go out, like maybe something will go out 2 days after they downloaded your report. Hey, did you see my tip for this on page 2? You know, this is the most helpful thing to most people. Make sure you read that, right? They are going to actually read it if you send that out. And then maybe 4 days later, you send some kind of helpful information. You know, a week later, you send some other helpful information. And then eventually, once they run through that sequence, which could be 6 to 7 emails long, they then go just in your monthly email list, and you contact them monthly. Okay, so the thing to remember with this is as soon as somebody gets on, at the point that they get on your list, that is when they are most motivated. That is when their motivation is highest. So if you can contact them as close to that period as possible, multiple times, then your chances of them actually taking action and coming in are going to be great. Don't worry if they don't, because you all know how this journey goes to therapy, right? It goes in and out of denial. It's a very windy road. You know, I'm thinking I want a divorce. I'm thinking I want to pursue this. Oh, God, I can't do that. Maybe I have a great week with my partner, and I think, that's crazy. What was I thinking? Or my kid all of a sudden has some issues in school, and I can't do it, right? Oh, I couldn't do that now. Or Christmas is coming. Can't do it now. Or my partner's birthday's come. Can't do it now. So, you know, whatever it is, this applies to depression, anxiety. It applies to everything. We go in and out of being motivated to do something. So if they do not act in that first week or two and give you a call once they've received your free report, do not worry, okay? Do not worry. Just keep emailing them monthly. Put a system in place where you do it religiously. Every month, something goes out to your list. I have had people on my list for 6 years before they ever contacted me and bought anything. They just weren't ready, okay? But they just stayed there and they just kept receiving things and learning things, and eventually they were ready to go, and it was worth it, right? So having a system in place where you actually act every month, no matter what size your list is, that's what you want to do. You want to take action. Okay, here's what happens with email contact. You remind them of their issue. As we talked about, denial is strong, and you position yourself as the go-to person to help them. Okay, so if I keep showing up, let's say somebody is, my business, my practice was Center for Healthy Divorce. That was my practice when I was practicing before I started doing all this stuff. So there would be people who would be worried about their kids, and I would send out a free report that had to do with how to take care of your kids through your divorce, right? Then I would follow up with studies on kids, or the fear of taking that action, or how to be very skillful in telling your children about your divorce, how to try to create a collaborative environment for your divorce. Every time I showed up in their inbox, I was basically, one, reminding them of their issue. If they decided, that's crazy, what was I thinking, I'm never going to get divorced, then they just opt out, right? They just unsubscribe from my list. No harm, no foul. It's all done. Who cares? But if they're still struggling with it, I'm going to show up as a reminder. Oh, there's this issue you haven't dealt with yet. Hello. And I'm also positioning myself as the go-to person to help them. Now, they probably, when they were out looking online for resources, they probably went to 5 different websites at least that day. That's what people do. If none of the other folks are following up with them on a regular basis, they are out of sight, out of mind, and I have no competition. The fact that I'm showing up every month and just kind of, continuing to provide good value, I am the obvious go-to person. That's all there is to it. That's what I want for you. I want you to position yourself as the obvious go-to person by continually showing up, all right? The most time-effective way to do this is to just send them a blog post each month. Now, you should be creating a blog post each month anyway, all right? So this is so little work. I mean, I cannot tell you, it's so little work. If you're creating at least 1 blog post a month, and that's what goes out to your list, and again, ideally 1 blog post and 1 newsletter for each one of your specialties that you're interested in growing. Okay, so many people maybe have 4 or 5 specialties, but they're going to proactively go after 1 group because that's really who they want to work with. So do whatever you want. If you break it up, you're going to do better. If you're more specific, you're going to do better. But just send a blog post. And I do have something that I'll show you in a minute about how to do that really, really, really easily. I know that some of you have fears around this because I've talked to you all for the last 8 years, and I know you have fears around this. Okay, so here's a common one. But if I send stuff, am I bothering them too much? Right? I don't want to send this. I'm bothering them too much. How could I do this? Or, oh my God, but what if someone unsubscribes? What if I send something and someone unsubscribes? And then I don't know what to write about when I send it. I mean, what do I send? I have no idea how to do this. So here's the answers to these things. You're most likely not bothering them too much. If they opted in, they're raising their hand and they're saying, I am interested in this topic. I'm looking for help. Please help me. Okay? So they have taken responsibility to get themselves on your list so that they can hear from you. At a minimum, so they could get that free report. And if you're bothering them, they will unsubscribe. So who cares, right? Who cares? They unsubscribe. They're no longer interested. That's human nature. We change our mind all the time. No big deal. That's why all of these autoresponders have easy unsubscribes, so that you don't have to worry about bothering people. If it doesn't fit for them anymore, they'll go away. No big deal, okay? I don't know what to write about. Well, all you do is you get a blogging process in place where you're going to write a blog post in each of your specialty categories that matter each month, and that's what goes out. It's simple, okay? It's very, very simple. What not to do in this follow-up: do not send them things that are irrelevant to them, okay? And again, specific lists prevent this. So, for instance, again, if you specialize in depression, eating disorders, and couples therapy, and you have one list on your site and people opt in, then the chances are pretty high that someone who's having some relationship issues are going to receive stuff about eating disorders, and they don't care about eating disorders. All right? This is why you want to be very specific. So you really want to have a free report and a list. Okay, the autoresponder related to a certain report will build a list related to that topic. You want to have an eating disorders list, you want to have a couples therapy list, and you want to have a depression list if you really want to grow all three of those. Okay? So don't send anything irrelevant. If I'm having depression issues, I don't care about eating disorders or couples. If I'm having couples issues, I don't care about eating disorders or depression, right? You get the gist there. The other thing is that I see happening is people waiting to send to their list until it's some magic size, right? Oh, I only have 3 people on my list. I'm not going to start sending anything yet. Well, why did you even get those 3 people on? Okay, because those 3 people are much more likely to become 3 clients if you start talking to them. Okay, would you ever have somebody call you and leave a message, and when you want clients, of course, leave a message and say, I'm not going to call back these 3. I'll wait until I get 100 phone calls. No. Okay? When they get on your list, they are expressing interest. So start emailing them. Get a system in place. This is what I recommend. Just get a system in place and implement it, and it doesn't matter how many people you have on there. Start. Because once you start, that's the way it goes. Funny story. Some of you were around for this maybe. A year and a half ago, when I started counseling-wise, after kind of being in this field for a long time, but kind of going off and working on online marketing for attorneys and home builders and all these other people, and then deciding, okay, forget it, I'm going back to just therapy, and I'm going to focus on that niche. I didn't have, I had a list, but I kind of neglected it. But I just decided I was going to mail the list, and I was going to start doing these webinars every month. And first they were teleseminars, and honestly, the first time I had 1 person. The second time I had 2 people. The third time I had 3, and then it went back down to 1. Okay, and I was like, I'm going to do this every month, no matter what. All right, that was my system. This is all I do now. Pretty much, this is all I do. I do these webinars, and we have plenty of business. Okay, because we're showing up, we're doing something systematically. Day in, day out, we do the same thing. We just keep showing up. No matter how small the list is, you just do it, and the list grows because of it. Okay, the list will grow. Your client load will grow, and it's really thinking in terms of systems, not thinking in terms of, oh my gosh, how many people are on there. Just do it. All right, that's how it works. Here's some resources for the follow-up piece. There's a post or a page on our site, and Megan will hopefully put these in the chat box so that you can actually copy them from there and put them somewhere if you want. There's a post on there called Monthly Newsletters for Your Therapy Practice that talks all about how to do this, what to do, what not to do, etc. Many of the things that I talked about today, and probably some more. And then there's another page on our site called Monthly Newsletters in 5 minutes or less, which actually shows me, I recorded myself and I timed myself creating a monthly newsletter, and it was 4 minutes and 30-something seconds, I think it ended up being, of me sending out a newsletter, including 3 different blog posts. Okay, and so it doesn't have to be a big deal. You can do this very, very quickly, and it's very important to do. All right, next steps. Let's talk about next steps. Ooh, kind of late today. This took a long time, longer than I thought. So if you need help in getting a free report and an email opt-in working on your site, you may need just help with a free report, contact me. Okay, if you just need help with a free report. We have writers who write them for you. They interview you and write them, so contact me if you need help with that. If you need help with formatting it or with a cover or putting it on your website, any of that, just contact me, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. Remember, however, that, our Smart Therapy Websites program takes care of all of this for you. All of this is integrated into the websites that we produce in that program. So if you're in the market for a new website anyway, if yours is not delivering and you need to really take a look at that and get it squared away and get a solid foundation in place, then you can go to counselingwise.com/smart, counselingwise.com/smart, and that will that program will help you get all of this done, in addition to having a really good homepage with specific navigation and well-placed blog posts and all that good stuff. Okay, an entire system. If you already have a pretty decent system that is just missing that step number 3, the keep in touch, or the list building and nurturing piece, then just contact me, because we can help you with any aspect of that you need. Here's how to contact me. Just go to counselingwise.com and you will see this little Let's Talk thing pop up from the bottom after you've been there a couple seconds, and just click Set Time to Discuss. You get a free half-hour consult with me. Okay, and so if you've already had one, you don't get another one. Okay, but if you haven't had one, you haven't talked with me, haven't had the pleasure of talking to Ms. Becky DeGrosso, then feel free to reach out and chat, and we can figure out if there's anything we can do to help you. Okay? All right, so I'm opening it up for questions. Finally, enter them into the chat box, and let's get them answered for you. Okay, so I am going to scroll down to the bottom and see if there are any questions that popped up while I was gabbing on and on there. Latanya. Autoresponder is in the WordPress Jetpack. Oh, okay, good. There's also a really good one called MailPoet that works with WordPress, Latanya. Audio file is an option. Yes, it is. Audio file is totally an option. And again, you want to have some visual on there so that people are really enticed to do it. Okay. Let's see. Janelle, I cannot see resources. Any thoughts? I think Megan's putting all the resources in here in the chat. So Janelle, hopefully you can get them there. How much does Counseling Wise charge for a 3D cover? We charge $50, Colleen. $50 for a 3D cover. Thanks for this topic. My question, if I have an audio, an article, etc. available elsewhere, is it still okay to offer it as an opt-in? Example, the Adoption Exchange published an article on sustainable parenting in their quarterly e-zine, and I was interviewed by Parker's Hospital Adoption Program, and they're keeping it online in their archives. If you have permission to use it, then yes. So Becky, if you have permission to use those, I mean, which you should because they're yours, right? Then yes, you can use those. Good idea. Reuse, right? Don't create more work for yourself. Megan's helping people out there in the chat with WordPress plugin is called MailPoet, formerly called Wasija. And in fact, I believe on the demo where I timed myself at that point, it was called Wasija. So don't get confused by that. More blog posts that Megan has put in there. Latanya, what is the name of the WordPress autoresponder MailPoet? There you go. Are newsletters really worth it? Or when you said newsletters weren't working anymore, was that comparison to the free report? Okay, yeah, good question, Karen. Good delineation there. Let's get clear. So here's the deal. When people say, hey, opt into my newsletter, that isn't effective. Newsletters are still very, very effective. And you could call it a newsletter, you could call it a monthly update, you could call it monthly outreach, monthly blog post, monthly tips, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be called a newsletter. In fact, newsletter kind of has a downer as a name these days. But as a lure, it's not as effective. Okay, a free report or an audio or video are much more effective as lures. So hopefully that is clear. What about people who did not opt in but requested info about my services? So I have their email. Should I include them in the email sequence? Okay, very, very good question, Carol. It is actually, what you can do is you can send them something. You can say, hey, I now have this list I'm building on my website. Please join my list. Go here. You actually want to get them officially and legitimately on your autoresponder list. Because if they're not, they may say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you sending me this stuff? Okay, and you don't want that. You also don't want them to mark your email as spam and then have the autoresponder guys kick you off their service. So you really want them to legitimately get on your list, and you need to tell them go somewhere to get on it, okay? Debbie, if we use your folks to design a website, will we have to go through them every time we want to make an update to our site? I prefer to be able to go online to make my own changes later. No, Debbie, the reason we use WordPress is that it's very easy to use. Once the site is up and running, you can add, delete, edit any pages that you want, pages and blog posts. Okay? How much do you charge for writing blogs? Good question. Go to this site called Therapy Blog Library. That's another website that we have where we have a blog writing service, Therapy Blog Library. We have 4 different plans. You could be on a repeating plan to have us write 1 a month, 2 a month, 3 a month, or 4 a month. Okay, so all the prices are out there, therapybloglibrary.com. All right, I think I have answered all the questions that are in the chat, and we are at the top of the hour. If there's any last-minute questions, put them in, and I will do it. How much do you charge for a monthly blog, and do I review it first? Yes, you go to that site, Therapy Blog Library, check it out. You review everything that you put on your site. So thanks Megan for putting that in there. We write it, and then you modify it as you like. That's how that program works. The prices are really low on there. We also do custom writing, where we'll do an interview with you, and we will write it based on the interview and work with you on editing it if need be, and that is $40 an hour. Okay, so you can choose that option if you want it to be more personalized and more based on, you know, what's in your head. We could do that as well. Or if you want more evergreen, professionally written blog posts that have to do with therapy topics, you choose the topics. We actually come up with the topics for you. Go to Therapy Blog Library. It's a less expensive option. All right, that's it. We're over time. Can you post all these resources since I cannot see the chat? Yes, let's see. Here's what I would suggest, okay, for the person who can't see the chat. Please go to the Counseling Wise website, and on our search bar, just do a search on free report, and you'll get that page. And go to the search bar and type in newsletter, and you'll get all those pages, okay? So it's all there. It's all there on the website. And certainly, if you can't find anything, reach out to me. Just go to counselingwise.com and reach out to me with a question. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Thanks for all your great questions. Appreciate it. And we'll see you probably in a couple weeks when we have the next webinar. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.